Have you ever wondered how a single event can change the course of history? Let's rewind to the early morning of December 7th, 1941. It was a day like any other, calm and peaceful. But unbeknownst to the United States, an unseen enemy was lurking in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. This was the day when the Empire of Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Picture this. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, and the military base at Pearl Harbor was starting its day. The sailors on the USS Arizona, one of the mightiest battleships in the American fleet, were going about their morning routines. Little did they know that their world was about to be turned upside down. In the blink of an eye, Japanese fighter planes swooped down from the sky, their engines roaring, guns blazing. The attack was swift, brutal, and utterly unexpected. In a matter of minutes, the USS Arizona was hit, a massive explosion ripping through the ship, sinking it, and taking with it the lives of over 1,000 sailors. But the devastation didn't stop there. Across the harbor, other ships were also under attack. The sky was filled with smoke and the ear-piercing sounds of explosions. When the dust settled, over 2,400 American lives were lost, and the United States Pacific Fleet was left in ruins. In just a few hours, America's perception of security was shattered. The unseen enemy had struck, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a nation in shock. The attack on Pearl Harbor was not just an assault on a military base. It was an assault on American soil, on American lives, and on American pride. This single event, this day of infamy, as President Franklin Roosevelt would later call it, catapulted the United States into the throes of World War II. It was a wake-up call, a harsh reminder that even the mightiest can be caught off guard. Imagine the shock, the heartbreak, and the rage that swept across America following the attack. In the immediate aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor, confusion and chaos reigned. The tranquil Hawaiian morning had been shattered by the roar of Japanese planes, and the remnants of the American Pacific Fleet were burning in the harbor. Sailors and civilians alike were left dazed and disoriented, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what had just occurred. Across the mainland, news of the attack spread like wildfire, sparking a media frenzy. Newspaper headlines screamed of treachery and destruction, radio broadcasts interrupted regular programming with urgent bulletins, and the nation was gripped by a collective sense of shock and disbelief. The public's reaction was swift and emotional. There was grief, of course, for the lives lost, and fear for what this might mean for the future. But above all, there was anger. A deep, burning anger that united the nation as few events ever had. The attack on Pearl Harbor was not just an attack on a military base, it was an attack on the American way of life, on the principles of freedom and democracy that the United States held dear. And America responded as one. People from all walks of life, from every corner of the country, rallied together. They donated blood, they bought war bonds, they signed up to serve. There was a determination, a collective resolve to defend American interests, to protect the American way of life, no matter the cost. And at the heart of it all was one man. While the nation reeled, while the world watched in shock, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was already planning America's response. He knew that this was a defining moment, not just for his presidency, but for the nation as a whole. He understood that the choices he made in the hours and days following the attack would shape the course of history. As smoke still rose from the wreckage, one man was already planning America's response. How does a leader respond to such a devastating attack? This is the question that faced President Franklin D. Roosevelt on December 7, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Roosevelt's response was immediate and unequivocal. The very next day, he addressed Congress and the nation in a historic speech that would forever be known as the Day of Infamy speech. His words resonated with a nation in shock as he declared, "Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan." The speech was more than just a call to arms, it was a call to unity and resolve. Roosevelt didn't shy away from the enormity of the situation. He didn't sugarcoat the facts or downplay the severity of the attack. Instead, he confronted it head-on, expressing his outrage and determination to see justice done. Roosevelt's words were not just empty rhetoric. He backed them up with decisive action. In his speech, he urged Congress to declare war on Japan, stating, "I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire." Congress responded swiftly, passing the declaration of war the very same day. Roosevelt's decisive leadership not only guided the nation through one of its darkest hours, but also set the course for America's role in World War II. His response was a clear demonstration of his resolve to defend American interests. He understood that the attack on Pearl Harbor was an attack on the very ideals that America stood for: freedom, democracy, and justice. And he was determined to protect these ideals, no matter the cost. Roosevelt's response was swift and decisive, propelling the United States into World War II. His leadership in the face of adversity remains a testament to the power of a leader's resolve in times of crisis. What happens when a nation declares war? It's a question that echoes through the halls of history, reverberating with the gravity of its implications. In the case of the United States in the wake of the Pearl Harbor attack, it was a swift and decisive declaration of war on Japan. The vote in Congress was nearly unanimous, a rare unity reflecting the widespread outrage and shock among the American public. It was on December 8, 1941, a day after the infamous attack, that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt stood before Congress and the nation to pronounce the words that would mark a turning point in World War II. Roosevelt's speech, now etched in the annals of history, was a rallying cry, a call to arms. He declared, "No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory." His words, filled with resolve, instilled in the hearts of Americans a firm determination to defend their country's interests. Following the declaration, Roosevelt's leadership was instrumental in mobilizing the nation's resources for the war effort. He worked tirelessly to ensure that the United States was prepared for the challenges ahead, coordinating efforts across various sectors, from the military to industry, from agriculture to science and technology. His goal was clear: to equip the United States with the tools and the resolve necessary to emerge victorious. The public's reaction to the declaration of war was a mixture of fear, anger, and determination. People across the country rallied behind their president, ready to do whatever it took to defend their homeland. It was a time of great uncertainty, but also of great resolve. And so, with Roosevelt at its helm, the United States steered its course into the turbulent waters of World War II. With a declaration of war, America was officially in the fight, with Roosevelt leading the charge. So how did the attack on Pearl Harbor change the course of history? The shockwaves of the assault on Pearl Harbor reverberated far beyond the immediate devastation. It was a catalyst, thrusting the United States onto the world stage in a way it had never been before. Roosevelt's response, swift and decisive, set the tone for America's involvement in World War II and the nation's role in the post-war world order. Before the attack, America had been a bystander to the war, maintaining a position of neutrality. But the attack on Pearl Harbor changed everything. It was a wake-up call to the nation, a stark reminder that isolationism was no longer a viable option in a world increasingly defined by global conflict. Roosevelt's declaration of war against Japan the very next day marked a definitive shift in American policy. It was a move that reflected not only his resolve to defend American interests, but also his understanding that the United States had a crucial role to play in the global balance of power. This resolve was reflected in the nation's war efforts. The United States mobilized rapidly, transforming its economy into a war machine and rallying the public behind the cause. American soldiers fought fiercely on multiple fronts, contributing significantly to the Allied victory. But the impact of the attack and Roosevelt's response extended beyond the war. It shaped the nation's identity, instilling a sense of unity and purpose. It also influenced the United States' approach to international relations, encouraging a more active role in global affairs. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States emerged as a leading world power. It took on the responsibility of rebuilding war-torn nations and shaping a new world order. a role it continues to play to this day. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a turning point in history, and Roosevelt's swift response played a crucial part in shaping the course of the war and the world that emerged from it.